Hello and welcome to Business Lunch. I'm Nisha Podar and with me as always is my co-anchor Pavitra Parekh. So Pavitra, really Nifty 50 is fighting to defend that 18,000 level at the moment, sustaining. But will it be a trend reversal when it comes to the lunch time, as it generally is the big question, because it was holding on with minor losses. But in the last half an hour or 1 hour of trade, there has been a consistent decline when it comes to the overall market. So at the moment, almost 0.5% down on Nifty 50, just holding on to that 18,000 level, psychological level, or 18,100 lost long back. And this is one psychological level of 18,000 that it is trying to defend. Let's see how the second half really pans out. Bank Nifty not helping much, in line with the key indices, 0.4% down. It was an underperformer yesterday. And mid caps, which have been outperforming slightly, with a lot of stocks really seen sell-off in the last one and a half months, are now almost flattish with a red tick. So at the moment, the second half looks weakish with the kind of market trajectory that we are seeing. But metals, remember, that had lost a lot of ground, trying to have a little bit of buying seen there. Hindalco is up in trade, gaining about 2.5%. So is Sun Pharma after the results, ONGC, ITC, some of those on my radar at the moment. Pavitra.
Hi Nisha, good afternoon. So like you pointed out, we have come off significantly from the highs. It's around a 100-point dip that we saw from the day's high. So we're watching how the market trends from here. But today it's really the healthcare pack which has it, right? Nisha mentioned Sun Pharma, but you have Dr. Reddy's, you have Divi's, which are all holding up. In fact, the pharma index for the week is up around 4.5%. So do keep that on your radar. Some of the metal names also will come up for you. Those ones are doing well. And you have a lot of these earnings reactions which are playing out. So whether it's an LIC housing, you have Chola investment, Karnataka Bank. We'll talk about all of those going forward. But, it is really a wait and watch mode ahead of the Fed decision tonight. So all eyes are on that, and we'll get back to that in just a bit. But let's talk about the individual stocks now. Sun Pharma is gaining in trade after it posted an inline set of Q2 numbers. Brokerages have also weighed in on what they think of these results. So Ekta is here to really break down all of that for us. Ekta.
Thanks for that. Well, yes, the momentum for Sun Pharma continues. In fact, it is at a fresh 52-week high, reacting to the commentary from the management, considering that the conference call took place after market hours yesterday. Remember, numbers came out during market hours, so the company did see, or the stock did see, that sort of momentum post the Q2 numbers being released during markets yesterday. Now, in terms of a couple of key takeaways, the global specialty sales were up 27% year on year. It was really the key driver in terms of numbers. They did $200 million in terms of total sales. In fact, the company has said that they are exploring in-licensing opportunities, M&A, when it comes to their specialty pipeline. Moving to the other segment in the US, which is basically the generic segment, they did say that price erosion in the US does remain. So that does remain a concern for most companies which have a portfolio in the US. They are on track to launch the generic version of Revlimid generic, which is basically the cancer drug, in the US market. But yes, they are not in the second wave of launches as it was expected. The Halol plant has an official action indicated status from the US FDA currently, and that continues. The company is implementing remediation when it comes there. R&D expenditure is expected to scale up for Sun Pharma going forward. But as of now, overall, despite the specialty sales doing so well, the company is sticking to its guidance, which it had given earlier, which is higher single-digit, lower double-digit growth, which is intact for FY23. Brokerages, extremely positive, most of them. So, for example, the likes of Bernstein, Morgan Stanley, Nomura, Citi, all of them have maintained their ratings. Many of them have increased their target prices on the stock. One of the outliers is Goldman Sachs, which has a sell and a target price of 830. On the positive side, brokerages have said it is well diversified in terms of a business which is helping Sun to manage its business volatility. They are positive in terms of the US markets as well as the margins driving growth. Goldman Sachs is a bit skittish on Sun Pharma simply because of factors such as intensifying industry-wide US price erosion.
All right. Thanks, Ekta, for that. And let's hear out also the management of Sun Pharma, Dilip Sangvi, what he had to say about the company's earnings in the conference call earlier today.
Consolidated sales for the quarter were at rupees 108,092 million, up 13.1% year on year. Most of our businesses witnessed good growth, led by global specialty business, India, and emerging markets. For Q2, our global specialty revenues were up 27.5% year-on-year to about $201 million. Illumia, Sequa, and Winlevi were the growth drivers for the quarter. This compares to rupees 5,364 million, 5.6% of sales for Q2 last year. We expect the R&D spend to gain momentum in coming quarters. This quarter, the total R&D spend for specialty product was 22% of our total R&D spend. Our current generic pipeline for the U.S. market includes 92 ANDAs and 13 NDAs awaiting approval with the U.S. FDA.
All right, that is the management of Sun Pharma on their outlook going forward. But those are visuals of the finance minister addressing the Karnataka Global Investor Meet 2022. So let's go across.
Headwinds are very strong. Elements of certainty completely absent. Even as we all started talking about China +1. When you wanted to diversify the value chains, or you wanted to ensure that there are more than one source for the raw material or for the intermediary products that you would produce. But also to have a consistency that you are somewhere, but you need to also have some other place where investments will have to be made so that eventually there are no huge disruptions. But that situation did not have its complete solution. You had the global situation of a war, such a war, especially from countries which are the source of essential raw materials, whether it is fuel related, whether it is fertilizer related, whether it is food grains related. So you have these countries which are at a situation, which are at a war-like situation, which are at war, which is causing a lot of insecurity to the globe, particularly in the area of fuel, energy that is, and food. So food grain and fuel insecurities have become a big issue of uncertainty for the globe. And as a result, countries are readjusting themselves to source these materials from a different part of the world. Now, that has had a bearing on industries, that has had a bearing on economy and its growth, that has had a bearing on trade, global trade as well. And as a result of these disruptions, you find large economies, which were also source of essential raw materials or intermediary products, or also which were the essential markets to which emerging markets were sending their products, are all going through huge recessionary doubts. They may technically be at the threshold of recession, but yet are not really out of that suspense or shock that will they be getting into further rigid recession in the future. Now, with all these uncertainties, I'm here to put it before you that because of the careful planning, targeted facilitation, fiscal prudence, and essentially understanding Indian economy for what strengths that it has, and for the challenges that it has to face, Honorable Prime Minister led from the front and made sure that Indian economy will not be severely threatened by these developments outside, ensured that hand-holding happened, targeted supports were extended to industries which required, particularly the MSME, and made sure that the Indian economy would be very carefully navigated through this challenge that we face. Now, as a result of it, between 2020 and today, we seem to have come out to a situation where the challenges continue. The newer challenges are also building up, but India is seen as an island of certain level of calm. We still do have our challenges, but not as would every other country suspect that India will be threatened by. So in a way, I've been hearing, and this is not me saying it, I've been hearing, both during my Washington visit when IMF and World Bank meetings happened, and also through the various visitors which I have been receiving in Delhi, that India seems to be an oasis of stability and calm, and the challenges are being carefully firewalled, that our economy now is very clearly attractive for investors. And that is where we find the investment interests, and Karnataka as a state has carefully reflected the policies of the center, has always made sure that policy consistency is held up, and held up only to make policies even more nimbly in time on issues which are developing, and make sure that the industry facilitates it. The industry consultative process which happens in Karnataka is one of those which are extensive. And as a result, today, I've heard from the Chief Minister that initially when this global meet was planned, their expectations and target was somewhere in the range of 5 lakh crores. Today, that has moved upwards to about 7.5 lakh crores, of which he has already cleared 2.8 lakh crore related proposals.
All right, Finance Minister there, Nirmala Sitharaman, making some important comments on the global inflation, food security, fuel security and fiscal prudence there in Karnataka's Investor Summit. With that, we'll slip into a short breather, but we'll come back for more. Morgan Stanley's Rhythm Desai tells CNBC-TV18 that India can really become a factory and back office of the world. And excerpts from that exclusive conversation is coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
आग को फैलने से रोकना मुश्किल है, पर नामुमकिन नहीं। अब फायरवॉल टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम आग से बचाए।
BKG Foods International Limited. Initial public offering of equity shares of face value of 1 rupee each through the book building process with a price band of 285 rupees to 300 rupees per equity share. Bid offer opens on Thursday, November 3, 2022 and closes on Monday, November 7, 2022. For risk factors and more details, please refer to the RHP available on the websites of SEBI, the book running lead managers and the stock exchanges.
Will snow days be a thing of the past? Or are we smarter than that?
You know, people often ask me why I left my steady job at the call center. I wanted more out of life. So, I launched my own startup. Do you want to know how? Then start up your own business as an LIC agent. You want it, we've got it. Great products, zero investment, leading organization, and unlimited opportunities. So are you ready? Now think big. Become an LIC agent.
Visit our website or contact your nearest LIC branch.
कंस्ट्रक्शन बहुत तगड़ा है।
क्या भाई साहब, जो साइट विजिट ना दिखाए 99 एकर्स बताए। घर लेना हो या बेचना, एक्सपर्ट से ही पूछना। 99acres.com।
मैं चाय नहीं पीता। हे, एक मिनट। भुजिया के बिना चाय नहीं पीता। पिकाजी है ना? हाँ।
Amaji loves Picaji, loves Picaji. Fusion Microfinance Limited, a company founded with the core idea of creating opportunities at the bottom of the pyramid by providing financial services to unserved and underserved women in rural and peri-rural areas across India. Now offers an initial public offer of equity shares of face value of 10 rupees each. The 100% book-built offer being offered in a price band of 350 to 368 rupees per equity share. Opens on November 2nd and closes on November 4th, 2022. For risk factors and more details, refer to the red herring prospectus.
Neymar from Brazil at the world's greatest show, the Football World Cup, live on the Geo Cinema app and Sports 18.
Hey guys, welcome back. You're still watching Business Lunch. Now, Morgan Stanley says India is set to become the world's third largest economy by 2031. A recent report by the investment bank also suggests that India will become the third biggest stock market before the end of the next decade. Shireen Bhan caught up with Rhythm Desai of Morgan Stanley to discuss the key growth risks as well as lots more. So here's an excerpt of that chat.
I think India has done a lot of heavy lifting over the past few years, especially over the last 4 or 5 years. And we did get interrupted by COVID, but we're now coming out of that, and all the labor that we put in terms of policy and other things are now bearing, I think, fruit. There are also a few things happening globally that are helping us. So it seems like a sweet spot for India. In fact, as we highlight in the report, stunningly, India could account for 20% of the growth that the world will generate over the next 10 years. So it's a very, very big shift. India has grown quite well over the past few years, but its share in the global economy is changing in a very dramatic fashion. Now, I'm sensing that companies in India are getting more optimistic. They are starting to run into some capacity constraints, and therefore there should be a pretty good capex cycle in the next 2-3 years, and that will be great for earnings. So that's something that we'll watch out for as well. But I think India is set to now become a meaningful part of the global supply chain. And a lot of companies will reveal this to you, that they're receiving orders. Hitherto, they didn't have access to those orders because Chinese companies used to take those orders, and they are now all set to increase capacity to service these export orders. On top of this, multinational companies are looking at India as a very attractive destination.
All right, and you can catch the whole conversation right here on CNBC-TV18 coming up at 6 p.m. In fact, this idea of India being a world's back office was first generated by Amitabh Kant last year, Pavitra. And we had taken it in our other show, The Thought Leak. So this was a great idea that was generated by Amitabh Kant when he was Niti chairman. With that, we'll slip into a short breather, but come back for more. All eyes tonight will be on Fed's decision with a 75 basis point rate hike. What's expected there? Let's come back and delve on that.
What is the current status of our cyber robbery?
Little bit playing tricks.
Alluring them a little bit.
Tempting them a little bit.
After that, their all money will be ours.
Our little awareness can stop their laughter and cunning tricks. Do not use unauthorized apps, unknown links, and don't allow unsecured Wi-Fi connections. If something wrong happens, report the matter immediately on helpline numbers.
Amit ji, हाँ जी, कुछ लेंगे आप? कुछ
पीली भुजिया, चना दाल, मसूर दाल, मूंग दाल, बेसन पापड़ी, मूंगफली दाना, काजू, किशमिश, बूंदी, इलायची, डंकोली, साबूदाना, कॉर्नफ्लेक्स यानी मकई पोहा, चिवड़ा, खीरा बीज, बेसन लगे मूंगफली दाना, हरा मटर, आलू लच्छा।
कुछ नहीं है ना इसमें? तभी तो मेरे पास हमेशा बीकाजी कुछ होता है।
Amit ji loves Bikaji, loves Bikaji.
Fusion Microfinance Limited, a company founded with the core idea of creating opportunities at the bottom of the pyramid by providing financial services to unserved and underserved women in rural and peri-rural areas across India. Now offers an initial public offer of equity shares of face value of 10 rupees each. The 100% book-built offer being offered in a price band of 350 to 368 rupees per equity share. Opens on November 2nd and closes on November 4th, 2022. For risk factors and more details, refer to the red herring prospectus.
मुथूट फाइनेंस पेश करते हैं गोल्ड लोन मेला। गोल्ड लोन ले और मौका पाए आकर्षक इनाम जीतने का। कॉल करें 180031311212।
अब देखिए ना, पूरे मोहल्ले की बिजली सक्सेना जी के पजामे से होकर गुजरती है। सिग्नेचर ग्लोबल सिटी, एक दुनिया वो थी और एक दुनिया ये, गली मोहल्ले की चिक चिक से दूर, दिल के पास। सूरज की अंगड़ाई तभी खुलती है जब आपके यहाँ सुबह की पहली चाय बनती है। इसीलिए इंडिपेंडेंट फ्लोर्स फॉर द इंडिपेंडेंट यू, सिग्नेचर ग्लोबल सिटी।
The Indian ecosystem has been favorable for startups over the past few years. IDFC First Bank joins hands with Money Control and CNBC-TV18 to launch a one-of-a-kind program for startups looking to make the big leap. Tune in for a conversation with V. Vaidyanathan, MD and CEO, IDFC First Bank, at these times only on CNBC-TV18.
Bikaji Foods International Limited. Initial public offering of equity shares of face value of 1 rupee each through the book building process with a price band of 285 rupees to 300 rupees per equity share. Bid offer opens on Thursday, November 3, 2022 and closes on Monday, November 7, 2022. For risk factors and more details, please refer to the RHP available on the websites of SEBI, the book running lead managers and the stock exchanges.
Messi magic. One last time at the world's greatest show. The Football World Cup, live on the Jio Cinema app and Sports 18.
Welcome back. You're watching Business Lunch, and straight to the biggest global development all the global markets are keeping an eye on, and Indian markets are also nervous ahead of that. Well, the keenly awaited Fed policy will be announced tonight with a 75 basis points hike widely expected. However, CNBC's latest Fed survey shows that the respondents expect the Fed to pivot to 50 basis points hike by the end of this particular year. CNBC's Steve Leisman filed this report.
The Fed's going to have to come up with either a new idea for what's going on in the job market, which I've maintained for a long time is kind of disconnected from what's happening with the funds rate in attempts to slow the economy, because we're still putting people back to work. The Fed's going to have to rethink this outlook on jobs, or it's going to have to concede to it, and the outlook is it's going to have to do more. And that's, I think, what the market is glomming onto here. When you look at our Fed survey, the only pivot they see, and I don't know how excited you want to get about this pivot, is from 75 down to 50 next month in the December meeting. But they still see the Fed going all the way up to 483 for a peak funds rate in March, which is a little earlier than the futures market is priced in. But there's that last line is probably the most important at this point, which is that they see the Fed maintaining that peak rate for up to 10 months. So you don't really get a real pivot, which is toward a rate cut, until the end of next year. And I don't know, I feel like the market's been really excited about this idea of pivoting from 75 to 50. I'm less excited by that because I still think the trajectory until the Federal Reserve gets some control on inflation, some sense of slack developing in the economy, I think the trajectory on rates is still up and higher.
All right, Steve, thanks a lot for lining up all of those expectations. That is the big cue that we are waiting. But with that, we're completely out of time on this edition of Business Lunch. From the entire team, thank you very much for tuning in. We have Mid Cap Radar up next.